1, 2, 3.
Welcome to the Sports Wrap with George and Ringer, and well, the days are getting longer.
They are.
Looking outside, and it's after 4:30 on a Thursday afternoon, and I can still see the sun right behind the camera, still above the horizon.
That's when I knew spring was coming. Wrestling season was getting over. It was still light out when you got done with practice.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And we could use some of that with the tough weather that's coming up with all the snow we're going to get this weekend, at least what they're telling us. And we'll have to see if it all happens or not. But winter's really here.
Judging from some of the characters and the hats they're wearing, they're expecting cold weather.
Yeah, we're taping Rennie. What do you want to talk about, though? Come on.
I want to know how did Clemson do?
How come what?
Rennie wants to know, how did Clemson do, your pick for Monday night's national championship game?
Hey,
how did Clemson do?
We ran a little short there.
Ran a little bit short?
But, you know, it's one of the things, and I mean, I've analyzed why they lost. And I think that Ed Oberjohn is
Coach
O.
O. Yeah, Coach O. I like.
He's a bigger character than
Dabo?
Dabo Swinney.
Making the right choice. But I will say this, Rennie. I was a little nervous about a quarter in that I had made the wrong choice, because Clemson came out and absolutely shut LSU down, put them in a vice, and I thought, then they got the touchdown, and I was kind of like, okay, they found something. Clemson will counter, and they couldn't find a counter in that second quarter. They could not find a way to put the vice back on them. Those receivers found a way to get open and to get deep, to loosen up the secondary a little bit, and then they started running some stuff underneath, and Thaddeus Moss is a big target at the tight end position.
He is.
And yeah, you know, Ed Orgeron said this team has to be thought about as one of the best teams ever, and this was that night, and I kind of it gave me some pause, and I mean, that's saying something. There's been some great teams out there.
Well, you know,
and I understand that they beat number 2, number 3, or 5, or 7, or 8, whatever it is. They beat 5 top 10 teams. So there's a lot to be said about that.
Now keep in mind where Coach O has taken this team. 2 years ago, they played Troy University at home, paying Troy $1 million, and were upset. 2 years ago. So he has brought this team a long ways with no small help from Ohio State.
True.
The big challenge ahead of him is who is he going to?
He's lost 6 already, and they're all those. I mean, he's got a backfield that look like you know, a Kentucky Derby. They could, you know, I'll tell you what. He's you know, I mean, he's a character. He's got all these crazy things. I read one where that he lost his job at Southern Cal because they couldn't understand him. And they thought that, you know, here they get this crazy guy, he doesn't, well, they understand him in Baton Rouge. And the kids love him, and he's a great coach.
And I think a lot has to go to the passing coordinator that they just lost to Carolina. Whatever his last, Joe Brady, whatever his first name is, and I think he was the one that took Burrows from this level to not going to even get drafted to 5th round draft pick, all the way to probably the number 1 overall pick, Joe Burrows. You got to give this coach, this kid, he's 30 years old. You got to give him a lot of credit, because 5 years ago he was the linebackers coach at William and Mary.
Well, you know, and the other thing was, you know, about Joe Burrow, he was the 23rd ranked quarterback in all of Division I at the beginning of the season. Everybody knew he was going from Ohio State. Nobody could pick him for a Heisman, and this has got to give him some credit for that.
You just wonder where that all lies, and so it was a good game, and when LSU came out in the second half and had a chance with the ball to kind of bury Clemson, and they didn't, and then Clemson got within 3 points, I thought, this baby is going to go all the way right down to the wire, just like I thought it would.
Yeah.
But it didn't, and LSU was able to put the clamps on Clemson's offense. They really couldn't get anything going. when Clemson lost their linebacker on this, I don't know. You want to call it questionable? I call it a questionable hit. When he got called for targeting, I really thought they're saying that the rule says that if you lead with the crown of your helmet and you strike the other player with the crown of your helmet, that's targeting. Okay, you can have that rule.
That costs big time.
But when you come in and you are putting if I put my head down and I put my head past you, everything's good. But if you make an evasive move and I hit you in the arm with my helmet, that's targeting. If I hit you with the crown of my helmet, to me that's baloney. So the offensive player is not responsible for any part of that contact. So to me, it's a very tough rule. And when Clemson lost that linebacker, they lost a certain edge on defense, and I really believe that had an outcome.
But Tim, you saw it in countless times this fall, both in high school and in college, and and sometimes it's very inadvertent. There's nothing you can do about it. It happens that fast. But there were a lot of good defensive players because they're going to naturally play very aggressive. They're going to get in there and they're going to go after. They're going to work the sidelines sometimes enthusiastically.
Yeah.
And but I have to agree, there was too many football games that were changed because of those kind of calls, and I don't believe they can be. Well, they are reviewed, but it's a strange situation.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the pros and college football do in the next 6 months to decide how they're going to go forward with some of these calls. I think the NFL more so with the pass interference and being reviewable and how they're going to review it. It's going to be very interesting to see. I know this seems odd, and I think I talked about this last week. The XFL is going to be playing games, who knows for how long, maybe 6 weeks, maybe the whole season. But they're going to be doing some of these same things to try to speed the game up, to not have as many delays. And will the NFL watch the XFL? Well, obviously they will be. But for like the first 5 or 6 weeks, will they really be looking at it and going, okay, when we get the owners together and we get our competition committee together and we start looking at the rules, what are we going to do? How are we going to go forward? Because the pass interference that we all thought was going to be fixed after the debacle with New Orleans last year with the Rams, we thought it would all be fixed. It wasn't fixed. It was changed throughout the year. You never knew what you were going to get. They seemed to be on a whimsy on how they were going to call it one week to the next. So they've got some things to do. The game's not perfect. A lot of people would like to see replay leave. I'm not one of those people. I think replay has its place, but there's got to be some limits to it, and they've got to find a way that when we get in the old days when they had replay, if they didn't come up with something in like 2 minutes or whatever,
they were done.
When the camera, when they're looking at their pad that they're looking at, when they get over there and it gets to 2 minutes, it shuts off. Sorry, that's it. We're done. We got to move on to keep the game going. So I hope they look at some of that. But I think LSU was the best team in the nation.
So Minnesota winds up 10th.
Minnesota winds up 10th. First time since '62 they end up in the top 10. And I was a little surprised that they got that highly ranked. Penn State was at 9, right?
9, yeah.
And Wisconsin was at 12, I think.
I believe so.
I think so. And then Ohio State was 4th, I think, 3rd or 4th. So you look at that, and 3 teams in the top 10 for the Big Ten, and Fleck has started to fill his coaching staff, just like everybody else is trying to do at this time of the year. See that he looks like he's going to get the D-line coach from Cincinnati to come in and work for him. So everything's working its way through, and I see a couple kids left, went back into the transfer portal since the last time we spoke, and that stuff's going to happen. And the Gophers will bring some players in, and some will leave, and some of them, want a chance to go play at a lower level because they found out maybe I can't play at the Big Ten level. That's the way things go.
Well, and it happens. And you take a look at how many people were tried at Division I that wound up at Division I AA. For instance, James Madison and NDSU.
Yeah, let's talk about the Bison and the Dukes, and I didn't get to watch all of it. I was driving for part of it, and do blah, blah, blah. And so I got to watch parts of it. You know, and then North Dakota State gave up the early, I mean, James Madison went right down, drove right down the field, stuck it right in the end zone, and I'm like, whoo.
Whoa.
And then here comes North Dakota State right back. They drive it down the field and tie it, and that kind of settled the troops a little bit, and the Bison end up winning 28-20 in a very good game, a very competitive game.
It was an excellent game.
And James Madison had a chance right down the stretch.
They were on the 3-yard line and threw a little sideline pass, and James Hendricks, who is from Bemidji, the senior cornerback, who also was the guy that was on the fake field goal and scored a touchdown earlier in the game. That's when I knew we had a football game. NDSU was going down there. What are they going to do? They're going to take this field goal? No. These are Bison. They're going to go after the win. And when they pulled the fake field goal, I, for one, was not at all surprised. You know,
you got to find the right time to do those things, and I think too many coaches have gotten to be too conservative about going for fake field goals or fake punts, and we saw a few of them during the bowl season back on their own 35-yard lines or whatever. So there were some coaches, you take some calculated risks and see how it all turns out.
You know, and there were a couple of interesting things here. Danucci threw 22 for 33 for 204 yards, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. Trey Lance was 6 for 10 for 72 yards, but he also had 30 carries for 166. And
was the Walter Payton Award winner, which is the Heisman Trophy winner, first freshman ever to win that award. So think about it. You got the Offensive Player of the Year, probably coming back for at least 2 more years, maybe 3, probably 3, as the starting quarterback, and you kind of think that gives North Dakota State a pretty good chance to come back and four-peat and 9 out of 10.
And they got a brand new coach who's all pumped up, and it's just they got an excellent program down there. You got to be real proud of the Bison.
You get this big target on you, and you're expected to keep this level up year after year after year. It's tough not to get complacent.
Yeah.
And that. It's not maybe so much the X's and O's, but keeping the kids without what they thinking that they don't have to keep working at it, and that's probably the biggest job that North Dakota State has right now, because they probably have the most talent. But how do they get the kids to keep thinking we got to keep working every day? And
well, one of the things that does it is I noticed an awful lot of green and yellow, green and gold jerseys down there, and then a lot of these guys had buffalo hats. They had great big hats, much like that character there.
Yeah, just like Rainey
with horns coming out the side. And I thought, if I would have known those would have been for sale, I'd have bought one just to wear it today. But you know, they did a really good job. It was a great game.
You know, those Bison fans, and I'm going to talk about them. You know, they love to go buy those tickets, hoping that their team's going to get to Frisco. And it's great that they do that. But, you know, they were having a little problem filling the seats at the Fargo Dome in the playoffs.
Well,
and so those they kind of got shamed a little bit when they played the semifinal game there. The week of, the paper kind of put out an article saying, look, we got the premier program in the nation, and we can't even get a sellout for a home playoff game. What's going on? Well, the fans responded and filled the seats for the semifinals, but the quarterfinals was very poorly attended. So all I'm saying is, Bison fans, you've gotten complacent. You're going, well, what's the point of going to the game? They're going to win anyway. So we'll just worry about things later on.
They open September 5th against Oregon.
Ooh.
So they're getting challenged right off the bat.
So that winning streak is in jeopardy, because Oregon ended up what? You got that someplace in your notes?
No, but I would imagine they were 8-3 or something like that.
Yeah, well, I think Oregon ended up in the top 15
They
because
did.
Or top. They should have been in the top 10 because they beat Wisconsin, right, in the Rose Bowl. So they were 6th, so they must have ended up 4th or 5th. So, So what you're saying is I should put a big X on my calendar for September 5th right now.
I should just tell you that I was flipping the pages real good and caught it.
September 5th. Huh?
September 5th.
Well, I assume that's out in Oregon.
I'm assuming that it's out there.
You have a friend out in Oregon. Are you going to make it? Are you going to make a trip?
I don't know. It might be fun to go out there and see that.
It would be fun.
I'm just saying that is pure college football. That is pure college football compared to all the Division I and all these. I mean, the multi-millions of dollars that the LSUs and the Penn States and the Ohio States and Minnesota spend. They don't spend near as much, and they still have a Fargo Dome, of course. I mean, they're doing pretty good, but the quality of that football is really good, and these kids want to be there. These senior linebackers that all of a sudden are getting drafted because they know how to pass coverage, and they know how to rush, and they know how to do a lot of good things. So, no, I love NDSU. I've seen them play a number of times, as have you. I know going into Fargo Dome is a bear for any team.
Absolutely.
If Oregon went there, although they wouldn't, I'm sure it's out in Oregon.
Does that put college football to bed? Sad as that might be, that to say that out loud, that college football is done, because that is my favorite of all the sports. Yes. That's the favorite, and to say that it's over is a little bit hurtful.
So come down. Were you disappointed in Clemson losing? Oh heavens, no! I actually like LSU better. I was just looking at the data. Why are you so depressed? That's the end of college football season. What am I going to do on Saturdays now?
We got to wait till like August, like 27th or something for a sniff of a college football game. So it's a long 7 months.
Meanwhile, my friend, there's some football this weekend.
Well, let's talk about the past weekend first, and then we'll talk about what's coming up. That I think will lead us in. So, I put at the top of my list what happened to the Ravens, because I did not get to watch this game because I was at the UND hockey game. So tell me what happened to how did the Ravens lose? I mean, we've been touting them as the best team.
Tennessee's defensive line played really, really well.
Okay.
Ryan Tannehill, he didn't throw for 100 yards, but he had one 45-yard touchdown pass, and he ran for another one.
Yeah.
And he controlled the ball, protected the ball, and then I'll tell you why they won it.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Well, no, and it's simply because Derrick Henry is the best running back in football right now.
Ooh.
And they asked one of his teammates, what makes him so special? And the teammate looked at the sportscaster and said, do you want to tackle him? And would you want to tackle him? And it's just like, no, and neither do anybody in the NFL. He is tough to tackle. He's tough to bring down. Unless they can control that guy, the Titans have a possibility of winning this game too.
Well, I can say that I've got all the stats or whatever, the numbers that I need to back this up. But there has to be a reason why Derrick Henry, who's been okay over the years, one of the better, whatever. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to say it's because of the offensive line. Now,
exactly.
I had a person talk to me Monday morning at school and said to me that dang Kirk Cousins, and that's filtering it for the fans here, that dang Kirk Cousins needs to go because he lost the game for us on Saturday.
Oh my.
And I'm like, how can you say that? He was 10 for 12 for whatever number of yards in the first half. Well, he just made some bad passes. He made some bad choices. Well, there were some plays out there that came up on the internet that he missed this wide open receiver and he missed this guy. Well, okay, every quarterback misses those. But we could not run the football, period, on Saturday, and we could not stop San Francisco from running the ball.
Exactly
so our offensive lines and defensive lines got their lunches handed to them. Somebody put out on the Twitter this week that the Minnesota Vikings offensive line only gave up the fourth fewest sacks of any team in the league. And as somebody came back and said that's just one stat. When you can't run the ball consistently week in and week out, that tells me there's a problem. And we're both linemen, coach. We know that the offensive line and the defensive line is really where it's made. And the reason why San Francisco, I believe, is going to win the Super Bowl is because they've got the best offense and defensive lines playing right now.
They said, who were the two biggest players on the field? And I said, DeForest Buckner and George Kittle. And it's just like, and people said, well, Kittle's hurt. You couldn't slow that horse down for this game. He would play with a broken leg.
When the third quarter started and somehow the Vikings were still in the ball game, I mean seriously, they were still in the ball game and they had no business being in the ball game. And even when San Francisco kicked the field goal, if I remember right, to go up 17-10, that sits in my mind was the score when they kicked the field goal early in the third quarter. The Vikings were still in it. But the Vikings had 7 carries for 14 yards, I think, in the first half.
Yeah.
They could not get anything going on the offensive line. And when San Francisco got the ball back, after the Vikings punted after that possession, San Francisco went 4 yards, 6 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards running the ball, and the Vikings knew what was coming. They knew that they were going to run the ball.
Well, Tevin Coleman kind of just took over and Raheem Mozart, he's another one. They have Matt Breida. They have all kinds of running backs. They're all fast. They're all tough.
Doesn't matter what kind of running back. If you got the right offensive lineman in front of them, they're going to get yards. And so that's, we can sit here and talk about how good Delvin Cook is. Delvin Cook's a great running back. But if his offensive line isn't doing the things in front of him, there is no place for him to run. Period. That is the truth. And everybody has said about the New England Patriots, they've won 6 Super Bowls in the last 20 years, blah, blah, blah. They don't have any superstars. Well, they had Randy Moss and they got Tom Brady and blah, blah. Okay, they've had some superstars on the outside. But where do they get the job done?
In the line.
Front. They get it done in the line.
That's
why
exactly
is Tom Brady still playing when he's 42 years old? Because he hasn't taken a billion hits like our good friend Lamar Jackson is going to take, and all these other quarterbacks are doing. Not to say that Brady hasn't been hurt but he hasn't taken the beating like other quarterbacks have. I'm telling you, people, you can sit here and tell me it's Kirk Cousins' fault and it's this person's fault. No, it's the offensive line and the defensive line's fault and it was this said in the Minneapolis paper this week. If the number one thing that Mike Zimmer and the GM Rick Spielman, if they don't take care of the offensive line again in the first round this year, like they got the center from North Carolina State last year, they need to get another offensive lineman, and they're not going to pick until number, dang it, I forgot. I was going to look, number 23, 4, 6, somewhere in there.
The 20s.
They're not going to find this premier wide receiver probably unless somebody goes through a Randy Moss and is smoking dope and falls through the thing or whatever. I mean, you might get somebody. But I bet my bottom dollar there's going to be a pretty good offensive guard or an offensive tackle sitting there at 25, 26, wherever the Vikings are at, and they better draft them. And I know somebody told me the other day the Vikings should sell out and go get Joe Burrow from number 1. Well, okay, that sounds pretty and all that other stuff. There is no way Cincinnati's giving up that pick.
Oh, no.
You could sell Cincinnati to the moon right now. They are not drafting Joe Burrow.
They didn't go through all this misery not to get that number 1 pick.
They're going to pick him, and I mean, if you maybe wanted to send your best running back, your best receiver, your best D-back, your best lineman, and then maybe they might think about it.
Well, I want to make one other point, and one person on that 49ers team that makes a difference, and I've never said this before, but I saw Tony Dungy interview John Lynch, the general manager, and we all grew up watching John Lynch. We knew how smart, knew how tough, knew his whole story, but he is a man of incredible focus.
Yeah.
And when he was talking, and of course so is Tony, and you look at these guys and you just say, I recognize that. I've seen that in other men. I know exactly what you mean. And he had an upper stroke on that football team. There's no doubt about it. And I generally don't say that about a lot of general managers, but I know about John Lynch, and he has done a very good job out there. And he was going to will this victory. Yeah, I don't know if he can do that. I don't know if that works with Aaron Rodgers, but
I'll show everybody if you ever get this, and you can zoom in and get it on your 90-inch screen right here towards the top of the piece of paper. It says Packers, and the word after it is whatever. I didn't get to watch hardly any of the game. I'll be honest with you. I'm traveling home from a putrid, wild game on Sunday afternoon. Absolutely brutal. I'm not kidding you, George. There were 17,738 people there, and there were times when it sounded like it was at practice. It was me and the team practicing on the ice. It was like there was nobody else there. It was so quiet. The Wild played so uninspired. It was. I'm sad that I spent the amount of money and the traveling time to go down and watch that. It makes me wonder if I'll go back to watch a Wild game anytime in the future, because it was awful. And then when your team's not playing very well and the referees let Zach Parise get absolutely cross-checked, and the referee even pointed at him like he faked it. And then the goaltender grabbed hold of Parise stick about 12 seconds later and wouldn't let Parise get away. And the referee's sitting right there looking at it. And you're going, okay, my team's playing horse crap. And then the referees are going to stab them. And then they called a couple penalties on the Wild. And it's just like, okay, I don't need the NHL right now because you're making my time whatever. So getting back to the Packers,
yes.
Somehow magically they pulled another one out.
They did.
And as I told you people last week, I was hoping it could end in a tie some way, somehow, that neither one of those teams would be able to go to San Francisco or whatever, because I told you, don't like Pete Carroll, he's a cheater. Okay, and of course the Packers are the Packers. It's easy not to like them. So, I mean, to me, somehow, some way he pulled it out.
This is kind of the deal there. San Francisco's waiting for him. They have one extra day to heal.
It didn't seem to matter for the Titans. I don't know.
No, it didn't.
They didn't need that extra day, did they?
No, but I want to go down to the Chiefs and Houston Texans. You know, Houston tied the second most points in a game this year and lost by 20. It's Mahomes. Pat Mahomes scored 3 touchdowns in 2 minutes and 24 seconds.
Yeah,
we thought 7 touchdowns in 1 quarter was big.
Yeah. I was sitting at the Wild game and I saw the score was 14-0, and I saw it was 21-0, and my buddy was sitting a couple chairs over, and I'm like, it's 21-0. He's like, wow, the Chiefs are, and I'm like, no, the Chiefs are getting pounded on right now. And the next time I pulled my phone out, they were up like 34-24, and I'm like, how can this? Yeah.
No. My wife went out to clean up after the dog. She was gone 5 minutes, and she comes in. What happened? And it was difficult to explain. But undoubtedly, Mahomes is really an incredible quarterback, and they've got a good offensive line clicking right now. The defense is playing the best probably that's played all season, and they're going to be all set for Tennessee again. What I heard that Baltimore was going to be able to do was crunch down on Henry, and they did a couple of plays. In fact, I hadn't seen him stop for a 2-yard loss all season long, but they weren't able to do it consistently. And once he gets into secondary, even a little bit, it's tough. He's as big as those linebackers, and a little bit meaner. And it's kind of like, and go back to George Ritter. Somebody said, what makes him so good? Well, he's fast. He can really catch. He's just better than any of the other tight ends. No, but he's meaner than all of them. And it's just they get on. You've seen these guys. They just take it to that next level of intensity. And when George Kittle gets a good block, he smiles. I've seen him. He enjoys it when he really goes out and hits somebody. He catches a pass, yeah, that's okay, but he likes hitting people. And
nothing wrong with that.
No. That's why he's probably the best tight end in football.
That's why it is what it is.
Yeah.
So let's make our picks.
Sure.
Kansas City and the Titans are first, and you are going with?
I'm going to go with Kansas City because they have shown to me. On the other hand, if they can't contain Henry, it's going to be a long day for the Chiefs.
Titans have already beat KC in KC once this year. Can they do it again?
Was Mahomes playing?
Yes.
Oh, was he playing that?
I believe so.
Just come back?
It could have been the game that he came back.
Okay.
So I am going to go with Kansas City still. I believe Kansas City finds a way to get it done.
Very good team.
And the only reason why I say that because they're at home. Although I'll be honest with you, folks, if the Titans find a way to pull it off, maybe they're a team of destiny. You might remember a couple of years ago, Pittsburgh was a 6th seed and made it all the way to the Super Bowl. And so don't be surprised. It's going to be close, though. But I'm going with Kansas City by a field goal.
It's going to be, I will watch every play intently. It's going to be a very fine football game. This is something, this is going to be a classic.
And in the nightcap, we got the Packers at the Niners, and you are going with the...
If John Lynch walked into this room right now, he'd convince me that he was here on divine purpose. No, I think San Francisco is going to win this one.
San Francisco versus the Niners, or San Francisco versus Kansas City, I agree, in the Super Bowl. It's a couple, 2.5 weeks from now. I say get ready for it. A lot of red at the Super Bowl
They
coming up.
will be red all over the place.
That's my call.
Now, where's the Super Bowl in Miami? Somebody asked me.
Is that where is it? Miami?
Miami.
I hadn't even looked. Doesn't
Yeah. It doesn't
it's
matter.
not any place close. After we won't get it back in Minneapolis till like I'm 75 years old, so I'm not going to worry about where it is anymore.
Well, then if that's, I'm not going to worry about either.
You'll only be 96. Come on.
Are we going to do our show, Super Bowl show?
We might do something like that. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see what our schedules look like.
Okay.
How
Anyway,
about
I just want to say one more thing about Lamar Jackson.
one more thing about Lamar
know,
Jackson?
He ran for 143, threw for 365.
So how do they only score 12 points, George?
Well,
That's a great stat. I brought that up with somebody else, and they said it doesn't matter how many yards you get; it's got to put it in the end zone. Okay, that's 500 yards of offense. You go up and down the field that many times.
no, I understand that. So they got to get a better field goal kicker, as near as I figure out. But you know, I mean, you have a man that's capable of all that offense. Now, and this is the big question. I mean, if you take a look at North Dakota State, if you take a look at Tennessee Titans, if you take a look at Lamar Jackson, who is the best ball carrier on the Ravens team. Kind of Ingram wasn't there, but you see these guys that are these tremendous athletes. The philosophy of throwing the ball 35 times or throwing the ball 15 times and double up the running, I think is in class here. And I think that's the one that Zimmer is dealing with, and I think a lot of other coaches are dealing with. And this goes right back to you know, my training down with Coach Jeff down there at Army. And Navy, for that matter. There's a lot of triple option stuff. I never thought that this stuff would come, especially in pro ball. Well, and on pro, because those quarterbacks get crunched so bad. And actually, none of them are very good ball handlers. I see Terry Bradshaw doing a lot of things, but not running a triple option.
No, I agree. Stefanski does leave the Vikings for Cleveland, so the Vikes will be looking for somebody to call the plays and have Mike Zimmer barking in his ear, telling him what play that he's supposed to run, not pass. Yeah. But anyway, we'll talk more about that. Did you get a chance to watch the Gophers and Penn State last night in men's basketball?
I did watch the Gophers and Penn State last night, and I'm telling you, Big Daniel looking better all the time.
Okay, so I didn't get to watch till there was about 4 minutes left because I was busy last night.
Yeah.
But there was a little jawing in the post-game handshake.
Yeah, noticed that, huh?
And there was a vulgar word that came out of Daniel's mouth more than once while he was barking at this kid from Penn State, and I cannot say that word on this TV program because I mean, if we were only on the internet, I could get away with it, but I can't do that. So apparently Daniel and this guy had both got called for technicals during the game.
They had.
So what was the deal? Was Daniel being a jerk? Was the other guy being a jerk? Were they both being jerks?
You know, like one of the announcers said, they have this shaking hand line, the handshake line, and they go to it, and some of these guys are coming off. They just left the court in a tight game, and you know what it's like in the barn. A lot of intensity there.
George, we also know that we are trying to train men or women, whichever the case might be, young ladies, young men, to be exactly that. That when the game is over, when the buzzer rings, you may not agree with what the other person is, but you go over there and you shake their hand, and you do it respectfully, and you look them in the eye, and then you move on. And if you don't have anything good to say, then keep your yapper shut. That's what we were taught. That's what I was taught to do. You win, you act gracefully. You lose, you act gracefully. While the time the clock is on and all that thing, be whatever you got to be. But when the game is over, you go over there and shake his hand. You did battle. You did the things you were supposed to do. You shake the man's hand. So I don't know how it got started. It looked like to me like Oturu was the one who did it. The kid from Penn State was trying to walk away. So Daniel, I like the tenacity, I like the fire, but I think you got to learn that after the game, you go shake the man's hand. You may not like it. You're going to get a chance to see him in 3 weeks. Take it out on him then.
Well, that's true, and we'll see what they do there. I mean, you know, I just think that Otero has done a very good job playing basketball, and he's carried what otherwise might be a mediocre basketball team Indeed, without him,
Absolutely.
they would be.
Absolutely.
You know,
Big win against Michigan on Sunday. And
yes.
you know.
I, for one, as a player or a coach, never got a red flag, and I was always proud of that. And so I understand what you're talking about. And there are some things that these kids still have to work out, as we well know. It's
yeah, absolutely. It's a learning process. But I sure hope that our good friend Richard Pitino pulls Daniel aside sometime today and says to him, "Look, we need to do this the right way."
Especially after he has a 26-point game, 14, 15 rebounds, some incredible block shots, and it was,
Yeah, that one in the final minutes, I thought he was going to get called for the foul, but the referee said it was clean.
It was clean.
Okay, we'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
No, it's a tough goal, but I catch your point, and maybe like the guy says, maybe they should wait 5 minutes before they shake hands or something.
Might not be a bad idea.
Might not be a bad idea.
Anything else you want to mention on Gopher men's basketball? Because I'm looking at the clock and we're.
How much time we have?
Well, we got about maybe 10 minutes. I'd like to be done because I mean I got some other stuff I want to talk about, but are we done? Okay. I'd like to stay with Gopher basketball, but I'd like to move to the women's side for a moment.
Sure.
Our good friend Lindsay Whalen, and I'll say that because she's everybody's good friend in Minnesota because she's going to hopefully resurrect this program. She's found her first hurdle that she's really had to overcome. She's had to suspend 3 of her better players over the past week or so, and she has a game with Iowa tonight on Thursday night, and they might have 2 of the sisters back out of the 3, but their best player, Destiny Pitts, is still suspended, and they don't know if she's going to be able to be playing with the Gophers anymore because she's not doing the things that she needs to do to be a team basketball player. Now, they haven't said what that all means, but even Lindsay Whalen says, this past week has been the hardest week as a head coach in my life, and she's got some work to do, and when you have to lay the law down, sometimes young ladies or men, and again, what I've been talking about, you're trying to teach them not only to be great basketball players, but you're trying to teach them the game of life and how to do things, and I don't mean to get too philosophical about it, but
no,
I hope they're able to get through this and get her back on the floor.
I don't know a coach that wouldn't agree that the hardest thing about coaching is rarely the sport you coach. It's the situation that you have, and then of course you gotta convince people to do it this way, and hopefully you've been trained in such a way. I think you probably coached pretty much the way you were coached. I certainly did, and it's just
absolutely.
I don't know why it is, but what happened. But that's got to be tough. That's got to be tough on Lindsay.
Got to be tough. Let's move on to Gopher wrestling. Did you get it? I assume that you were watching with every breath that you took on the other night.
I did.
As they beat the cheeseheads, those dirty buggers.
They beat them up pretty good, and let me see it. I got my slip paper. Here it is. Brock Lesnar showed up, and the people went nuts.
People love Brock.
There's nothing like you have to see some of this. You know where WWF and some of this stuff comes from? It comes from just the back. There were hundreds of kids chasing around, some of them in singlets and headgear and all the rest of this stuff, and he was incredibly patient. I also saw some video where he went down and had a workout with my friend Gable Stevenson, and Stevenson looked remarkably big next to him. Last year and the last few years, he looked a little roly-poly. He does not look roly-poly now. He looks
Gable,
really
they say he's put on maybe 15, 20 pounds, and as they said on the telecast, he's put it on in the right places.
Right places, yeah.
So that's a good sign for him to be able to pick up the guy from Wisconsin. I don't remember his name, but he was like heaving him around like a doll a couple of times.
Well, and Trent Hilger is no slouch. He's number 5 in the nation.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't know, they have Gable down at number 2. He probably is going to be number 1 because Penn State wrestler, who was number 1, looks like he's out for the season.
Okay.
And so, on the other hand, the heavyweight wrestling these days is so explosive, and these guys do things that 155 and 165 pound wrestlers do. They're so strong, and they have such a wide variety of wrestling technique. It just isn't out there slugging each other anymore. And Gable, he's still a sophomore. There's no way, there's no reason for him not to be a 3-time national champion. And you don't say that about anybody. But there's some other people. Devin Skatska is ranked number 7. He won 11-3. And my friend Mitch McGee's little brother, he got a 9-0 win over Eric Barrett, and Mitch McGee, who is
but he didn't take care of business.
No, but Tristan Morgan was no fish, as they said. And so, you know, he's
got his number.
He does have his number, and I'm telling you, I have never seen Mitch McKee so angry coming off the mat, and it's just, you know, that was a tough situation.
I think, for lack of a better, he has to learn how to finish. And he's got to be able to wrestle all 7 minutes like he wrestles the first 3 minutes, and that's something he's going to have to work on.
I always, every time I see two brothers in the same collegiate wrestling team, I think, I'll bet you their living room got busted up a lot. You know?
I can believe that.
And Brayton Lee, I've just been kind of paying attention to Brayton. He's ranked number 4, and he took over Cole Martin, who was ranked number 12, and that might have been the best wrestling match of the night. I haven't had a chance to see it a second time, but when I took a look, Wisconsin was basically beat by Minnesota, and we'll see what happens. They're in Michigan and Michigan State this weekend, and we'll pick up what happens. I think the next home is Ohio State.
Ohio State on the 26th.
26th, and that'll
be fun to go watch.
I can't believe my pickle brain comes up with that.
Big Ten has 7 of the top 8 ranked teams in NCAA wrestling.
Yeah.
So the Gophers were at number 3, and Iowa, I think, 1. Was it Penn State 2?
Penn State 2, and
then the Gophers were 3.
And the Gophers 3.
And I think Purdue was 5, or 5 or 6, which surprised the heck out of me.
Yeah.
So obviously, Big Ten wrestling, just like Big Ten volleyball, is one of the premier conferences in the nation, or is the premier conference in the nation, and so it's going to be very interesting. And the Gophers, they're doing okay.
They are doing. And I tell you, at the beginning of the year, you were wondering, geez, if they don't do this or they don't do that.
You mean when they lost to Ryder and I was bad-mouthing them? Okay,
yes.
Keep going.
Yeah, no, but of course they lost to Lehigh too, and I thought, everybody, there's nothing to matter. I'll tell you, when we go down to the NCAAs, there's going to be a number of guys there from Lehigh.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, they're a good, strong wrestling program, and it seems like the Gophers have to work up through a stage of misery. It's like it's
a rite of passage.
Well, one guy from Iowa one time says, in order to get good, you have to do things that would make a billy goat sick, and it's just and that he didn't say sick actually.
He said some other word that we can't say.
So it's one of the things where apparently they have to feel the pain. On the other hand, it looks like they have Stevenson back in the groove, and he's going to be the team leader. He's going to be the team leader for any number of time. I'm glad he's there.
Twins made a splash this week by signing Josh Donaldson, 4 years, $92 million, and a lot of people were, I think, upset with the Twins, maybe me being one of them, that they hadn't made a big splash. It sounded like last week, over the weekend, that there was no way Donaldson even wanted to have anything to do with the Twins. It didn't matter how much money they would have offered, that he didn't want to come here and play. But they signed him earlier this week. They get him for $92 million. It was interesting to watch the pundits out there who were deciding where in the batting order is Josh Donaldson going to be at. Okay, some had him at 2, some had him at 5. It was interesting to see where they're going to put him. Our good friend over here says 4. It's going to be interesting because you look at this lineup and up and down the lineup, even if there's somebody who's out for the day, they're going to be very tough to contend with. Having said that, I think Miguel Sano may not be a Twin for very long, and I think the Twins are going to ship Sano to somebody for a pitcher at some point in the season. Midway through July or whatever. Donaldson's a third baseman. Sano's a third baseman. Yes, I know we think Sano might be able to go over and play first base. I like Miguel. I want Miguel to stay here. But I think with Donaldson coming into the fold, I think that Sano will become the biggest bargaining chip that they can send to somebody. I'd love to see Big Miguel stay here and do his thing. But if somebody's going to go the way of the dodo for the Twins, I think Miguel is the guy with the longest longevity. People will say, hey, give us Miguel, we'll send you X pitcher. The Twins need another pitcher. If they're going to actually contend for the World Series, they need a lockdown pitcher that you can say every fifth day he's going to give us one heck of a chance to win. The Twins are trying to do it with smoke and mirrors and whatever else. You need one guy that you can say, I'm going to give you the ball today, and we're going to get the job done. And the Twins, I don't know if have that guy. I think we'd like to think we have that guy with whoever you want to. Pitcher A, pitcher B, whichever one you want to throw in there. But
as long as we're on the baseball, let's talk about Alex Cora.
Oh, you want to open up the box, huh?
Got to get right to the top right down here. Alex Cora is a guy that worked for the Houston Astros and set up their pitch stealing program. And then everybody says, well, why don't you just allow? I mean, outfielders have been trying to steal pitches forever. That's why the catcher covers his signs. But, you know, he set up an incredible digital thing, and it's going to cost him. It cost him his job with Boston. The last 2 years, he's been the manager of Boston, and they canned him. And
so let me throw this point that I've been throwing around. See how you brought it up.
Yeah,
I brought up this point many times during the past few days. I'm glad that Major League Baseball has gone after the Astros and the Red Sox because of what they have done. They won back-to-back World Series in 17 and 18. Obviously, they were saying, well, they didn't do it on the road, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they didn't do it on the road, but you win your games at home, you win your playoff games at home, take care of business. Having said that, I'm going to throw this point out to you, and you guys out there in TV land can throw me under the bus if you'd like to. Pete Rose has been banned for baseball since 1990, 89, 91, somewhere in there. Pete Rose didn't cheat. He did gamble, and he gambled on his own team, but he gambled on his team to win every time. He didn't gamble on them to lose. So here we sit 30 years later almost. Pete Rose is still banned from baseball. He never cheated in a game. Yes, he bet on his team, and I know it's against the rules. But these guys used video equipment to cheat, and they're not going to get the World Series strip from 2017, the Astros. The Red Sox probably are not going to get their World Series strip for 2018, and these guys are going to get suspended from baseball for 1 year. The GM and the manager, Heinrich, for Houston. Cora is probably going to get the same thing. They're going to get suspended for 1 year, and Pete Rose has been banned for baseball forever for gambling on a game on betting on his team would win. That's wrong. It's these guys should be banned for life. They should be Black Sox list, just like the Black Sox did in 1919. They should be done for. They should never get to coach in baseball ever again. This is what needs to happen so that teams aren't doing this, because everybody out there with the Astros and the Red Sox are saying, well, everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it. Well, then you lay the law down and you go SMU. Okay, and the Timberwolves thing has been brought up. You brought it up about the Joe Smith thing, I think, last week. Joe Smith, when the Timberwolves and Kevin McHale did their little behind the thing, not only did they get slapped on the wrist, they got kicked right in the old you-know-where.
Yeah, they did.
Because they lost first-round picks for 4 years. It was basically a death sentence to the Timberwolves franchise. That's why the Timberwolves have been bad for so long, because they lost 4 first-round picks, and they were horrible. That reason. Houston and the Red Sox both need the same treatment. They need to be kicked right in the you-know-where to let every other team. You haven't heard anybody in the NBA doing this ever again. No. You need to teach these teams a lesson. They're getting off too easy. I'm glad that they got the penalties, but they're getting off too easy. $5 million for the franchise for the Houston Astros is a pittance. That's like you coming out here to the Rainier Muni and dropping a $100 bill on the floor and losing it and saying, well, that's no big deal. That's what $5 million is to them. It's yeah. I mean, if you lost a $10,000 to be a difference. So, okay, I went way too far on that.
Okay,
topic,
I got one other legal issue.
Oh, good jeez.
We talked about California law this fall. All of a sudden, doing stuff for college athletes. Now, 24 states, Florida, Georgia, Minnesota, New York, Pennsylvania, Carolina, and Washington, amongst others, are writing legislation to stop the NCAA from making money off these kids' images and stuff without the kids. And that seems to be the major issue. But thus far, this whole situation has been confined to a courtroom. Now it's in the state houses, which means that it's now a political, debatable thing, so guys on TV like you and I can discuss it. And it's just, I mean, things are changing very quickly. We talked earlier about transfer portals and all the rest of this thing. There are some college superstars out there. What's Joe Burrow's number 9? I saw 1,000 kids with number 9s that were wearing with Burrow on the back. It's one of the things.
It's a tough thing.
It is.
I thought you were going to bring up the fact that Odell Beckham Jr. was throwing around cash to these kids on the field after the game, after LSU won the game. Odell Beckham, who played for LSU, was out there giving the kids money after the game for the things that they did. Then found out that he slapped a security guard on the backside while he was in the locker room.
And he was arrested.
And then he got arrested for this. And so now everybody's like, well, these kids don't get anything. These kids don't get anything. Okay, they're getting 4 or 5 years of education at a big university that probably costs $20,000. They're getting room and board. They're getting the best weight room facilities, bodybuilding facilities, everything else. They're getting meals prepared for them. Look what the Gophers just put up. They've got all this stuff taken care of for them, and we're telling kids they're not getting paid. I understand. They're not getting any money in their pocket. But I had to pay for my college education by going out and taking out loans, grants, scholarships, whatever else. These kids are getting it for free. So when you tell me that they're not getting paid, I understand what you're saying. They don't have enough money to go out and buy McDonald's or wherever you want to say. But most of them get a meal every day anyway, because especially during the season, they're getting probably more than a meal. So don't tell me that they're not getting paid. And so the fact that Odell Beckham is throwing around, sorry. I got to stop there because it's going to get ugly.
It says whether states should try to force the National Collegiate Athletic Association to allow college athletes to profit from their fame. And that's what it comes down to.
I understand. Yeah, I get it. And I think they should get something for it. Yes. But again, we talked about the fact that we're going to have the haves and the have-nots, because all the haves end up at Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, all the top programs, and all these other programs don't get all the haves, and so those kids that are probably already getting rich are already
opulence in public education. What can you say? We spend more money on our athletes than any other programs in the country. There's no doubt about it. And you can make it. We could have a whole show on that one. So, but it's interesting. I mean, I bring these points up just for points of discussion
to get my blood pressure up. I think is what you do it for.
My wife.
Not that I'm easily rattled, folks, but Australian Open starts on Sunday night.
Can they have it?
They're going to have it. They're going to go through with the smoke, and there's some concerned players about the smoke. But Australian Open tennis tournament starts. That'll cause some late nights and some early mornings to watch some tennis. You know, you laughed at me a couple weeks ago with the darts. I like my tennis too, and the Australian Open being on from like 8 o'clock at night to like 6 o'clock in the morning is very difficult for me to let go. But it'll be some good times coming up tonight, right after I get done taping this show. That's why I was hoping we were going to get done a little bit sooner. Going to go do Bronco girls basketball. Next week, Monday, we're going to be doing Bronco girls hockey from Fort Francis, and we're going to be doing Bronco boys basketball next Thursday at home against Warroad. So put those on your schedule on KCC TV and Midco Channel 7. We will have basketball tonight, but then we'll have girls hockey on Monday the 20th and boys basketball on Thursday the 23rd.
And it's streamed around the world.
And it's streamed around the world on kcc-tv.org. Anything else?
No, this was a good one.
Folks, we got to go. Thanks. Talk to you next week.